Hello everybody, welcome back to the Galactic Armory. Today, we've got something very exciting for you guys, Captain Enoch. Jamie here has been hard at work on him basically all week, right?
Yeah, this has been my week praying that he doesn't die and make this entire video a lot less important.
We did that with Marok, we fell into that pit trap, but we get to see hopefully more of him in Ahsoka Season 2.
We'll see.
Today we're going to be telling you how Jamie finished this helmet, as well as these cursed faceplates. The alternates, yeah, they're just so terrible. We have a lot more, like Thomas the Tank Engine.
The Thomas the Tank
That's a
Engine.
favorite of mine.
We have Smiley Face, Winky Face. We have, what else?
Groucho Marx.
Groucho Marx or Schmapton Schmeenoch.
Yeah, Incognito Enoch. We got a lot of faceplates. We're going to probably do more of those in the future. And they can all swap out with the ones in there. We'll have some fun with that later. But let's get right into the tutorial of how Jamie here finished this helmet. So Jamie, this helmet starts as a raw 3D print off of our Bamboo Lab X1 Carbon 3D printer. It printed out all of the parts of this helmet in around 24 total hours. It did not take very long at all. That was printed at 0.16 layer height, super small, super refined. And the first thing we've got to do is smooth out all of those 3D print lines. How are you going to do that?
So it's a really easy process. As we've always said in our videos, the Bamboo Lab printers, it's like cheating. The quality of the print once we're done is absolutely amazing. Very little work is needing done, but there's always some trouble spots. Usually at the top of the dome here, and just in any underhanging areas like on the forehead, or just under here where the printer meets the supports.
Especially like where some of the parts connect to like the back around the earpiece.
Oh yeah,
Some of that just needs filled in a little bit.
Yeah, it's very rare that we're able to get perfect attachment points, so you just want to fill in those gap lines. It's a really quick job, and then at that point, all we need to do is just coat the entire thing in a layer of filler primer. Get it nice and thick because you're going to be sanding most of this away pretty much immediately.
Our goal here is just to fill in those 3D printer lines so that we have, a smooth surface for painting. After we have sanded down the Bondo and the filler primer, you're going to take it to the sink and do a little bit of wet sanding, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we always start at about 400 grit, which is just somewhere between taking away material and polishing, because it's the last chance to get some of these layer lines away, which there are very few, but there's still some. With a 400 grit, we're getting that material away towards the top, along the sides, and we are going to build up our polish from there. So usually we go from 400 to about 600, 800, even up to 1,000, 1,500 if you want.
It's gonna make the surface so smooth and so easy to paint. With these metallics. Metallics have a tendency to show layer lines, show surface imperfections very easily. So we want that surface as smooth as we can get it.
Yeah, especially on these masks here, we actually brought these up to about 1,500 grit just to get it nice and shiny and polished. But that's a quick process. With these bamboo printers, we are able to get to that point in an afternoon. It's incredible work.
Yeah, that's why I bought 3 more earlier this week.
Yeah. we have a problem.
We love those machines.
Once you're polished up, we just want to make sure that any last imperfections are covered. I like to personally cover the print in another final layer of filler primer. It will make sure that if there's anything remaining, it is gone. So to go back over our process, it is a layer of filler primer, a polish of 400 all the way up to 1,500, and then a second layer of filler primer, and you are done. Your print is pretty much ready to go, maybe some touch-ups, but you're ready to get painting.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of this helmet.
Yeah, it's also the challenge in this helmet because there's a lot to go over.
So what were the processes you took when you started painting this thing?
Yep, so I always like to coat everything first in a layer of flat gray primer, Rust-Oleum being one of my favorites. It always creates a good neutral point to go brighter, like the white, darker, like these grays, and just takes paint really well, whichever way you want to go for it. So I actually kept that gray for these detail points, just like up here, this trapezoid, these cheek pieces here.
I see.
And just, I will cover that up and then continue with the rest of the helmet, which includes a primer black along this band, and then white all over the rest of the helmet, just using Rust-Oleum primer white.
And so did you have to tape off all these areas when adding other colors like that?
So bit by bit, I start covering more and more. So such as these trapezoids, I'll just cover those. Then when it gets to this band, I'll spray that, wait for that to cure, then just cover that. And so I am making sure that I am taping up the least amount of work possible each time. You don't want to cover the entire thing and then spray over and then cover an entire thing again, making it easier for myself getting this done as quickly as possible.
Now let's talk about the gold, because that's the fun part, that's the interesting part. What did we use for the gold all over the helmet? We have different types of gold here, but we're focusing on the gold that we used for Enoch the Rock Johnson and regular Enoch here.
So I tested a lot of different golds. I wanted to make sure that I was able to paint the gold by brush. That was the first requirement.
For all of these lines.
Yeah. That meant that I wasn't able to use a spray paint unless I spent the entire week masking off each individual line.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, no thank you. So I made sure that I was able to apply this same gold with a brush that I was also able to airbrush in these larger areas here to get a consistent color and a consistent texture. So how I did that was I used a mix of Alclad Pale Gold, which is a classic airbrush brand.
Right.
But then it didn't really have the same ability to use a brush. It was a little bit thin because it's an airbrush paint.
Right.
So we also use Liquid Leaf Classic Gold, and this stuff is reflective. It is very shiny. It is a xylene based mixed with just copper powder, and it is very shiny, but it is very thick and doesn't airbrush well.
Right. So you had to find a happy medium between the two, right?
And I tested it by just mixing the two. And lo and behold, the chemicals didn't freak out.
You try a small batch first.
Yeah, I didn't just immediately dump it on the print, but yeah, they mixed perfectly well in a 50-50 mix, which allowed me to both brush it on and airbrush it separately. And thank God it worked, because it ended up meaning that all of the lines and all of the flat surface areas were all the same tone, which is one of the most important things.
All consistent, and you want it to look like it was made from the same material, and all of that, being able to use it with a paintbrush and an airbrush.
Yep.
Super important.
The process really is just taking your time with a small brush, a soft bristle brush in particular, one that you don't really care about because the liquid leaf is quite a thick gummy material and it will actually gum up the brush. So we use a lot of disposable brushes for this. You want to just take your time and just gradually go along these lines, which our file has them already inset and engraved, so it perfectly matches the reference.
Let's talk about the weathering a little bit. After all the gold had dried, all the paint had dried, we had to make this thing look a little bit more in universe.
Yeah.
Walk us through that?
We use a lot of our usual methods with this. So especially in this white area, staying away from the gold right now, a lot of the white area just use a classic acrylic wash. Now, we use these in a lot of our videos, which is just a mix of standard black acrylic poster paint with some water. Now, you get the ratio that you want just by testing it out, but I used quite a heavy mix because, well, these night troopers
their helmets have been smashed to pieces and put back together.
been through a lot, yeah.
What have they been like? Probably 8 years?
Yeah, probably without
more.
Though we did learn in the sequel trilogy that there is laundromats on Death Stars or on Star Destroyers, so they could have done a better work cleaning their stuff. So gradually build up the acrylic bit by bit and wipe it away, dab it, and make sure that the streaks don't look artificial. Usually that means just quick passes, random passes, small touches here or there, which will stop the finish having streaks and will just make it look like dirt has built up in recesses and has discolored the armor itself. So once all the white was done to around about where I wanted it, that is when I actually brought out the oil paints. Now, I noticed that the gold, the liquid leaf, I think in particular, was a little bit hydrophobic. Just a little bit. And that just means that the water in the acrylic wash just didn't quite grip to the paint. It just started to bead. So with that in mind, I brought out our second favorite weathering method, just some black oil paint. and I just dab it in to recesses, dab it onto the surface, and use another clean towel to just wipe it, smear it, build it up in areas. And that's the great thing about oil paint, that you can't really push it around, move it around into recesses, and it'll just discolor that gold enough to match all of the shots that we saw of Enoch, which was a dirty boy.
They're very dirty boys, all of them. Let's talk about the eyes a little bit. I've had a lot of questions about the eyes.
Yeah.
How we're planning to do them, how we're able to see out of them. Because if you look closely at the eyes, it is very much a dark stone-like texture. It's not glossy or reflective like a usual TIE fighter or stormtrooper. So we had to get a little bit creative.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. It took us a lot of thought and planning to get this right and to get this version here able to see out of compared to these other versions we have here, which are completely opaque.
And this one's just painted on,
like
Rock's eyes.
But this we can perfectly see out of. Now, the method that we used to do this was actually a two-part method of vacuum forming what we call bubble lenses, which is lenses that create that bubble effect over the eyes. We took a lot of inspiration from our previous Dirge video, which in that we use the material was just pantyhose,
Stockings,
right?
yeah.
Stockings.
Non-reflective, super matte.
Yeah.
But still, you can see through it.
Exactly. That if you pull it tight enough, you can perfectly see through it. So we used that material that was stretched over these vacuum-formed bubble lenses. Now, we vacuum formed it by just making a buck, printing that on our Saturn, our
and
Elegoo
on an
Saturn.
SLA resin printer.
Yeah, and just brought that directly over to our vacuum forming machine and just pulled a series of small individual see-through bubble lenses.
We put like 6 of them on a table and just heated up some PETG plastic and pull it right over, suck the air out, and it forms these nice bubble lenses.
Really, really nice. And it perfectly forms to the inside of his eyelids, which is really creepy now that I think about it. By getting those bubble lenses, that allowed the fabric to form around it, and we used some hot glue just to keep that and tack that into place. And then once that had cooled down and glued properly into place around the bubble lens, we could just hot glue that directly into the eye sockets. And given that these are vacuum formed to perfectly match the shape of the eyelids, they were able to just slot into place and perfectly align. We're really happy with how it came out. I think it's the closest approximation that I have seen of lenses that you're perfectly able to see through whilst having that stone-like, completely matte, evil-looking
non-reflective, super dull-looking eyes.
Yeah, I think it came out really well, and that was pretty much the biggest challenge out of all of this.
Yeah, we had to get a little bit creative with that one. Let's talk about some of the alternate faces. So let me see if I can do this hot swap on camera. So inside of the helmet, there are all these ridges that hold the faceplate in place just with pressure, friction. So we could pop it out and replace it with terrible looking ones or silly ones like this, or cold casted ones in brass, right?
And this was actual brass, cold casted with black resin. Is a smooth cast 65D.
On the back side there, kind of what's behind that metal. But I can take this, and because it's the same shape as the printed one, it fits right in there. So there we have a polished brass, actual brass metal faceplate. Let's talk about how you made this, because it's quite an interesting technique. What did you have to do for it?
When this faceplate was completely ready, at that point, we decided that we wanted to create an actual metal version. Now, we chose brass for this, and we wanted to use a method called cold casting. If you have seen our DC-17 pistol video, that's when we experimented first in this method.
It's called cold casting because you're working with a metal and essentially casting something without having to heat up a forge to thousands of degrees or anything like that.
Which is really useful in a place like this.
Yeah.
So we use this method called slush casting, which will be an open face casting method. Now the faceplate will be held completely upright, coated in silicone, and then around that thick layer of silicone will be a shell of hard fiberglass and resin.
And that's just to kind of keep the silicone from flopping everywhere.
That's exactly
just
right.
to hold it in place.
And so once we had a thick layer of silicone and then a layer of fiberglass over that was created in a two-part mold so it could separate evenly down the middle. When you flip open the mold and then take out the master, which will be left completely undamaged and ready to continue with its painting journey, we can then move on to the casting method. Now it's called slush casting because very literally you slush a load of resin around inside the mold. The molding process will create a negative imprint of this exact faceplate, which means that when you pour in the resin, it will perfectly form this solid piece.
Yeah.
But if you dust a layer of, in this case, brass over the inside of this mold, when you pour in your resin, it will encapsulate all of that metal powder. And then when you pull it, you have an entire coat of metal on the outside.
It is actual metal powder. Like, it comes in a small little container, but it is dense.
It is heavy.
It is actual metal flakes, and you're just kind of dusting it on the surface.
Yeah.
So that you have, it's a super thin layer, albeit, but still, that's a layer of brass. And you can work with that brass like you would normally.
Yeah,
including polishing it,
In
right?
this case, we used some Brasso polishing agent and some Type 00
Steel wool?
Yeah, steel wool. And that was just enough to like capture the light, polish up this actual brass. And just because we thought it was cool, we thought we would do an actual metal. Because why not?
It's very cool. It is solid. It's got, you know, metal age in it. You can like see like around the nose even.
Yeah, there is no weathering on this. This is how it naturally comes out with just how the brass hits the light. And because we have this mold now, we could potentially make iron versions of the mask and then
nickel,
rust it up. Copper,
bronze.
Really, we could do whatever we want with it now because we've made a perfect imprint of this exact faceplate.
I would love to do an iron one. Oh, it just looks so cool.
So you'll notice that in the show, Enoch has these two Imperial cogs here. Now they're weird and small.
Yeah,
Have you noticed
very,
that?
very small.
Yeah, they're a little bit unique because we usually see these in like TIE pilots and they're big 2.75 inch, you know, big cogs. His aren't. They're very small, and we don't judge him for it.
No, it's perfect for us.
So we have these decals here, which are printed or not printed, cut using our silhouette. This is basically like a cricket. Yeah. It's just a decal cutter. And these, for your reference, are 1.75 inch each. We believe that these sort of matched the perfect amount.
That's in diameter, right?
Yes, correct, across. You'll also notice that he had some scratches. They were imperfect, so using just a little scalpel, I cut away at it. And then I used from 2 points of reference to get these exact. I measured from the very end of the band 10 centimeters. Sorry to mix metric and
How dare you?
And then going from the edge of this trapezoid up to here. And so I measure from 2 points to make sure that it was at the same distance and the exact same side to get a good general idea of where they were equally centered. So once that's on there, that's pretty much one of the key details for him.
Yeah, how'd you dirty it up?
So that was exact application of an oil paint that I just dab onto all these dirty points and then just push it in. And because these decals are actually three-dimensional, they may be extremely thin, but they are raised up, it will capture a little bit of oil all the way around it and will make that dirty.
That looks so good.
Yeah, I think it worked really, really well. So when you're done, you've added all these greeblies in the front here, the sides, the back, you are pretty much done. You've got your weathering, you've got all of your details, you've got your cogs. You just want to make sure that you're coating the entire thing in a nice layer of, well, we recommend satin because there's a little bit of a shine still despite all of this dirt.
But it's certainly not a gloss.
No.
Not matte.
Yeah.
It does have a little bit of a satin reflection.
Yeah, you notice that it captures the light around about here. So once you're completely coated, everything is there and is permanently attached. That's when you can start having some fun with it.
Yeah, that's when we can start screwing around. I am dying to put this face in. May I?
Yes, please go right ahead.
this face is haunting. Probably not as haunting as the Thomas the Tank Engine one.
No,
But,
no, it is Halloween nearly.
Oh yeah, I want to do the skull face that we have
it's
too.
very cool.
That is very fun looking.
If you have any ideas of other alternative face sculpts, do put them in the comments
Oh,
because
yeah.
we are really interested in adding more.
I'm having too much fun. I want to do like a George Lucas and Dave Filoni one too.
God,
Just
the
to,
little cowboy hat on the top.
yeah, force him to sign it one day.
Force him, yeah, accurate. And here we have
It is so cursed.
Enoch the Rock Johnson, or Dwayne the Enoch Johnson. I can't look at you.
what Enoch the Rock's cooking.
I can't look at him. And this is just one of the many options that we have available in our file set.
That's too much fun. Yeah, we've got lots more, many more on the way too. Just let us know what we should do and what other cursed versions we should add. Overall, Jamie, how'd you like the project?
This was a lot of fun. It was a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, I think this came out really, really well. I had a lot of fun using so many different techniques, learning new techniques with the eyes, using new materials like this type of gold. It was a whole lot of fun, and this is a build that I'm tempted to do a finished piece in.
Oh my gosh,
Full
yeah.
kit.
Just desecrate a usual stormtrooper kit
Oh, no.
and put gold everywhere.
Sacrilegious.
I'm very tempted. We might also do the 3D print files for it. I'm
Yeah.
super tempted. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for enduring the cursed Enoch the Rock Johnson face. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. We covered a lot of different topics. So I hope some of that was helpful for you. I hope it inspired you to take on a project like this yourself, because it's quite fun. It's
a
quite
lot of
relaxing. And at the end of the day, you get cool helmets like this. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again in the next video.